in the book, the first big bold heading is why study literature. So as you're reading, what do you think it would be important to take note of when reading this section? The main reasons why you study literature. It carries on to what makes a good reader. And then holy moly, in the middle of that one, there's a list. You better believe if there's a bulleted list of qualities of something as you're reading something, if those aren't things that are intrinsic to you, take note of that. And then lastly, I believe the chapter ends with ideas, analysis, and extension. Those are listed as the 3 ways in which you access literature. So those are the important big ideas of this section. So this is what I consider and what I think you should consider the important big ideas of this section to be, and your notes should be reflective of that if it wasn't something that you already knew. Now, I would imagine maybe some of you that were less inclined to do a great job of taking notes would be like, why study literature? Man, Lindenberg said a bunch of stuff about that yesterday. I don't need to take any notes on that, which is, not necessarily an unfair thought. However, this was the assigned reading, and this is what you were to be held accountable for. So you want to make sure that when you're taking notes on what's in the text, not necessarily what you think. So why study literature? Things that they could have written down include, but are not limited to, helping us to understand ourselves a little better. Turn to literary texts as an escape. Find comfort in reading about the motivation and thoughts of others. Sense of community. Lets us know that we're not all alone. Explore a cultural or political background. Themes deepen your understanding and your confidence to join the conversation. Does anybody have anything else they would like to advocate for inclusion on that list? Remember, if you do, you need to also cite where it happens in the book. And these are all or nothing. So if they only got 2 or 3 reasons, donezo, 0 for 1. Here we go. Question number 2. Why is discussing a work of literature more important than the solitary act of reading? Right here, discussing a work of literature is important than the solitary act of reading. As we share our interpretation with others, we learn how to communicate, how to agree and disagree. Perhaps more important, we share an experience. All right. The qualities of a good reader. Holy moly. It even says right here, the following is a list of qualities that describe an effective reader.
I read it, I just fully forgot about it, and I didn't even write a single thing down about that.
So that's an 0 for on that one.
Zero.
That's going to do. That's an 0 for 1. Fearlessness. Be daring and plunge into the text. Patience. Hold off on passing judgment. Many-mindedness. Literature does not offer simple questions to simple answers, or simple answers to simple questions. Attentiveness. Pay attention. And stamina. Concentrate. Think hard.
You had something like that, I would have given it to you, but
So if they have 4 of them.
Over.
you did just as good as me in that
Just skip
question.
the line.
All right. Last one. According to the text, this is a biggie. This is kind of like, this offers you a framework with which you can access and understand things. When I define these, it's important that you understand that this is not a step 1, 2, 3 process. You don't go experience, then analysis, then extension. Those things all swirl around. It can be happening simultaneously or out of order. You can go analysis, then go to experience and extension, or vice versa. But these are the 3 ways in which you can access literature. Experience. We respond to literature subjectively, personally, and emotionally. Somebody describe that in your own words. What does it mean to respond to literature subjectively, personally, and emotionally?
Think about how it relates to you.
Yeah, not necessarily how it relates to you, but how you
Relate to the
react. It's how you're reacting to something. Now, what's the difference between subjective and objective?
Subjective's got bias.
Right. And here we're encouraging you to bring your bias in there and be aware of your bias as you're reading it. Okay, so you react, have thoughts, have hot takes. Okay, so first thing is experience. Thing number 2, or dose in Spanish, analysis. Here's where you begin to ask questions, where you think about the way language is used. You draw inferences. No detail is unimportant. So notice, 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 notice. Okay, so you're noticing details and how they build to create meaning. This is where some students get lost. I think Ortega, you made this joke day one. Like, what's the blue door mean, man? Yeah, and then people get frustrated. How am I supposed to know what the blue door means? Okay, so, and I think where people get lost is when, like, as teacher, if I try to impose upon you, Ortega, this is the one meaning of the blue door, and this is what the blue door has to mean. That's where there can be a disconnect. However, what we're saying with analysis, no detail is unimportant. And if you, as the reader, can project meaning onto the detail, then you're in good shape, as long as that meaning is enforced by text. So what I mean by that, what that could mean is, let's say I describe this class in Mr. Lindenberg's opus, the greatest novel written by somebody who is 33 years old and in room 153 that's ever been written. Okay, so let's say I write my novel. And in my novel, I describe this room. And in this room, there is a description of that wastebasket over there. And Ortega reads my book because, of course, and he's reading it. And he's like, man, Ben, you got to check out this description of the classroom. In it, there's this like wastebasket. And that wastebasket is representing, how we as a society, we take important thoughts and personal beliefs and we just store them in a worthless basket. I mean, there is piles and piles and piles of homework, of independent thought and critical thinking in the wire basket. And it's just sitting there. No one's touching it. No one thinks about it, man. Lindenberg, and he's exposing how we as a society, don't know how to value thought and what's important. So Ortega says that to Ben. Now, did I intend for that wire basket necessarily to represent that? Who knows? But if Ortega sees that detail and makes that conclusion, and more importantly, there's other stuff happening in my story that reinforces that theme of, people not valuing knowledge in society, then can the wastebasket mean that?
Yeah.
Can the wastebasket also mean nothing?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So like we said yesterday, literature is this constant negotiation between denotation and connotation. Literally, it's a wastebasket or a wire basket full of homework, but connotatively, Ortega, in addition to other textual clues, is able to say that. You can't just, now, it would be disingenuous if he were to say that about the wastebasket. And why do I call it wastebasket?
Wire basket.
Wire basket. Because I find your thoughts worthless. that's why I'm calling it a wastebasket. Right? Because you're not yet thinking. Anyway, it would be disingenuous of Ortega to come to that conclusion if there's nothing else like that going on in my story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the blue door can be the blue door as long as there's other stuff going on around it that can lead you to that conclusion. If you're just saying, no, man, the blue door is representative of, Hunter's depression. Okay. If Hunter's never depressed anywhere else in the story, then it can't be that. That is a foolish hypothesis. Okay. So analysis, you're looking at detail. No detail is unimportant. Good to go?
Yeah.
All right. And then lastly, extension. You interpret the world around the poem. So the world in which the author created it, what's happening in the author's life, what's happening in the world during that time, or what we're going to become comfortable with right away, you apply those lessons to your life. So can you extend what's happening in the text and apply it to something that you see in the world? Some measure of independent thought. Since I said this is out of 5 questions, I'll give you a bonus point. So it's out of 5. You're welcome. Put the number right out of 5 at the top. Give it back to the original author, and then hand it in to me. After you do that, open up your book to page 9/10, and we're going to go on a little experience analysis extension journey. Here's a lot of fun.
Oh, where do we put this?
Thank you, Benjamin.
Yeah, I'll come by and pick it up.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, man.
Crazy stuff.
Thanks.
I put a lot more stress in that than I did. Took thorough notes. That's better notes than I took all day by.
You might come back.
I don't know, my notes were really
I
immersed.
got mobility.
What is it? You know what you said.
They're done mine.
This is one, I missed all 5 of them, and it would get the same score.
Dear Mr. Stevens, happy goodbye.
Oh,
All right,
I have your sister.
let's go on a journey. So page 9, bottom of page 9, little poem titled "The Shawl."
The shawl.
So I'm gonna read this to you,
Oh, yeah.
and while you're listening, I want you to experience and maybe begin approaching analysis. Have some hot takes, have some thoughts, notice some details. Maybe just notice them and say, yeah, that's interesting. And maybe that can launch discussion from there. Or maybe notice a detail and say, and here's what I think's going on. And that's pretty neat. So here we go. Good old Albert Goldbarth. Probably one of the ugliest names I've run across today. Fun fact, the ugliest name in literature is a delightful woman called Hulga, who has a wooden leg,
Oh,
and a Bible salesman who is a con artist seduces her, leads her to the top of a barn loft, takes off her wooden leg, steals her stuff, runs away, leaves Hulga up in the barn loft, alone, once more, seeking physical touch. Poor Hulga. Anyway, here we go. Shawl, Albert Goldbarth. 8 hours by bus, and night was on them. He could see himself now in the window, see his head there with the country running through it like a long thought made of steel and wheat. Darkness outside, darkness in the bus, as if a sea were dark and the belly of the whale were dark to match it. He was 20. Of course, his eyes returned repeatedly to the knee of the woman 2 rows up, positioned so occasional headlights struck it into life. But more reliable was the book. He was discovering himself to be among the tribe that reads. Now the only overhead turned on. Now nothing else existed, only him and the book, and the light thrown over his shoulders as luxuriously as a cashmere shawl. Like Albert Goldbarth, you've done it again. All right, so class students, hit me with some experience / analysis. How are you reacting? What details are you noticing? What hot takes do you have? You're not going to find thoughts by looking at me, Miss Brooks.
I described a boring bus ride pretty well.
Boring bus ride. That's what you're getting. Okay. Where do you see what's giving you boring bus ride, Mr. Schmidt?
Well, just kind of like there's nothing he's noticing on the outside, just a long bout of steel and weeds.
All right.
Dark inside, dark outside, nothing really to look at.
All right. So yeah, dark inside, dark outside, steel and wheat. It's like driving through like Iowa. Okay. Nothing around, grains, below.
And he notices the girl's knees 2 rows up and says that the book made it as if nothing else existed.
The what?
The book. Only him and the book and the light thrown over his shoulders luxuriously as a cashmere shawl.
You've zoomed through some stuff. Let's hang out with the foxy lady first. All right. So in the beginning, let's play around first with Mr. Schmidt's boring, and then we'll come to foxy lady and end with our fancy shawl. Okay. So let's hang out in the beginning and look at this. 8 hours by bus and night was on them. Okay. So how is that giving us boring? It's nighttime on a bus, right? And how long has he been on this bus? 8 hours. Okay. He could see himself now in the window, see his head there in the country running through it, a long thing made of steel and wheat. Now, try to add some more nuance to boring, right? So, certainly boring, but what else in addition to boring? He's in deep thought. How can you tell deep thought, Mr. Young?
He's staring at himself in the window.
Yeah, staring at himself in the window, but it's also at night, right? So it's like a solitary, almost like a meditation, okay? How does boredom get us to that point?
He's been on the bus for a
Yeah, I mean, you have nothing to, you're alone with your thoughts. We'd imagine Goldbarth is writing this in a pre-cell phone era. So it can't just be swiping left and right or, whatever game people are playing nowadays. What are you going to do? Darkness outside, darkness in the bus. Okay. Dark. As if the sea were dark, belly of the whale imagine. So really dark, boring, meditative bus ride. Now we have, when we notice this foxy lady, our first instance of what? What appears in the scene for the first time? Person and lights. Okay, so light's coming in. All right, and at first, light is illuminating what?
A lady.
That knee. Yeah. And we all know how sexy knees can be when illuminated by headlights from time to time. All right. Now, somebody projects some meaning onto this light. What could this light be, metaphorically? Interest. Okay. Why are you getting interest? Why does light give you interest?
Because he's on the bus and it's dark the whole time and he's in deep thought. When the light comes in, so does the girl's nice looking knees.
So it's snapping his attention there. And at this point, when he's noticing knees, what do we think about this dude?
He's a knee fetish.
We're maybe wondering about the morality of this guy. Like, okay, he's noticing the knee. Where is this going to go next? But then, so we went for, Whoa. You go down to Mr. Probst and you tell him what you said. Okay? You tell him exactly what you said. On the camera right here. Word for word. Yeah. Documented. Can't talk your way out of it. All right. But more reliable was the book. Okay. Now, so is the attention shifting from knee to book? Book is described as more reliable than the knee. How can a book be more reliable than the knee? So in one way, he's holding his interest long. So the book is going to be something that can capture his attention. Also, if he were to pursue the knee, there's a chance the owner of the knee might say, "Get away from me, creepy guy." Stop looking at my knees. Book is something that he can open and close at his leisure. Also, the knee is being illuminated by what? Flashing lights, right? The book is illuminated by what? A constant light, something that he has more control over. Okay, so all those things are kind of working together to talk about this book. He was discovering himself to be among the tribe that reads. Somebody analyze that deet for me. It's a hip way of saying, talk about that detail.
He's part of the group that reads books.
Yeah. But it's not just described as a group. What's the most important word there? Tribe. What does that suggest?
Since books are old and so are tribes,
Tribes.
Not all books are old.
It's a small group.
It's a small, how is a tribe different than a group? Tight knit, right? People looking at, when I read, and I see someone else that reads, like, always go like this.
You do not.
All the time. And sometimes like I'm in a library, it's really hard. All over the place. It's great. All right. Now the only overhead light turned on. Now nothing else existed. So books are doing what to him? They're consuming him, transplanting him. And the light thrown over his shoulders is as luxurious as a cashmere shawl. It's nice light, warmth, right? Luxury. This book, it's not just like this book is like taking him somewhere else. There's a warmth, there's a desire to do this. All right, and we could go from there to talk about theme, but we're just gonna stop with that today. Can anybody come up with extension? So can you extend what's going on with this guy in this moment to something that you know in your life?
I've been on car rides. He's on a long train ride.
Have you had similar experience with boredom?
Yes,
Right?
staring out the window.
Somebody came up with like video games earlier. The way when they play video games,
Yeah.
they feel the way this guy does when he's reading book. Okay, so that would be example of extension. Your assignment for tomorrow is to be a human being.
Yes.
Experience,
My favorite.
analyze, and extend the world in which you exist.
You're not too big.
I like it.
Stop talking about elbows, Ortega.
I don't know. Those videos
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna say screw it to the course and take everyone to Dairy Queen. And then stop, get a blizzard, and then come back. That's got to be like 3 miles, right? About.
Yeah. Yeah, let me finish.